Good evening. Welcome to tonight's work session. We're going to start off with a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up will be our audience of citizens. I'll just read off the guidelines. This meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending the meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania's Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board sign the audience of citizens logbook. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments. To allow time for those who wish to speak to the board president may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. So with that, if anyone would like to make public comment, Mr. Patchell, of course.
Good evening. My name is William Patchell. I live at 404 Bonnie Lane. I've spoken before the board many times. Sometimes the subjects which I address are, less agreeable. Some people. Sometimes I'm very appreciative that the board. Mr. Costa sent me a very nice reply on what I had said, and he was always interacting with me, as many board members don't. I guess if you ignore it, it might go away. It doesn't work for the coronavirus, but it could work for me. So really what I want to talk about is, as we approach all these projects, all these things, we have to remember it has to be done in a thoughtful, sustainable kind of a way. When I hear about these rent subsidies and everything, you're lucky you're even living in North Penn School District, because I know in my township, Montgomery Township, I think I saw about 11 houses for sale, and they start at $400,000. So, we don't have the timer on? Wait a minute, I'm laughing. Okay. Okay, we're up to the races. We're out of the gate. Ding! Okay, so what I really want you to understand is that we're well on our way to academic and financial apartheid. Do you think anybody poor is going to be able to move into Montgomery Township? You know what that looks like? Yeah, starting about October, November, all the mail gets readdressed down in Naples, Florida. That's where these people live. I'm going to do that too. I'm waiting for my wife to escape. What are you going to do when you have all these people through retirement and they say, we created 275,000 jobs? Yeah, you had 300,000 retired. I wouldn't doubt that too much, and I'm kind of doubtful. What kind of jobs did you create? It's really sad. I think I told Dr. Dietrich, 30% of the graduates don't even finish college in 4 years. You know why? Hey, I ran out of money. I never planned on that. A lot of these students, they really don't have a good groundwork on what it takes to, do it, plan for it, make a logistical thing, and be able to complete and actually merge into the labor force. I hear a lot of sad stories, So, a lot depends on. If you're lucky enough, you got really good families. I came from a good district. I got great teachers. I did this. A lot of it's like a casino event. You'd probably be doing pretty good at Las Vegas Sands. But you have to understand about these expenditures. You need to put, if you want to really make headway.
Mr. Stockey, where are we at? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Start thinking about not doing anything, but you need to reduce your debt. Smart people, you know what? They're not refinancing. They got 8 years to go at 3%. I'm not refinancing. I'm going to be the only guy in the block, maybe, that has his house paid off. Guy lives in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patchell. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment this evening?
Pardon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
My name is Betsy Winter Hall. I'm the parent of 3 children in the district, 2 of whom attend Bridle Path Elementary. My middle child, Kaylee, is 6 years old, in 1st grade, and has Down syndrome. When she was younger, she was fully included in a preschool program where she learned her alphabet and corresponding letter sounds. She had strong friendships, and though her speech was delayed, she adopted a lot of the typical mannerisms like, come on, and fine, when she was 4. She also told absolutely dreadful, and still does, knock-knock jokes. She was 100% a part of her class, but at that time we took inclusion for granted. When she started elementary school, we discovered that not everyone is comfortable with students like her being a full-time member of a regular class. Many people have outdated notions of special education, or they find it too challenging, and it is challenging, or their expectations are too low. So I started following success stories of teens and young adults with autism spectrum disorder and Down syndrome, people who had jobs, who were living independently, and who were out there self-advocating. I talked with those who graduated high school and entered into college. And every one told me a story of that individual's full, supported inclusion with same-age classmates. Some of the stories were uplifting. All the stories were uplifting. But some of the stories were also very painful, stories of struggle with often well-intentioned administrators and educators. At a panel about a year ago, one self-advocate, who's an adult, was asked, "Were you fully included in school?" He seemed genuinely shocked by the question and answered, "Of course," like that. Another mom told me she had to argue for her son with autism's inclusion year after year until he graduated from high school. But he was successfully fully included nonetheless, and the job he now holds didn't come through a technical or transition program. It came through a high school classmate who knew him well, and well enough to hire him when given the opportunity. So those are our proof points. But also, at the same time that we were doing that, this district hosted special education best practice workshops featuring experts like Sue Buckley and Julie Costin. So I started diving into the research. And
Mrs.
here's
Winterhall, I'm sorry. There's a 3-minute limit.
Oh, did I already hit it?
Yeah. Up here.
Would
so,
you-
could you?
I have
you can just
one
wrap
more
it up in the next
paragraph.
minute or so. Yes,
Yeah.
that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I started diving into the research, and here's what's true. Inclusion leads to the best life outcomes for people with disabilities of all kinds. Empirically, no other approach or program matches its success rate. So don't let anyone try to convince you otherwise, please. By being here in North Penn, Kaylee is meaningfully included. She's not a visitor or a part-time gen ed student, and as a result, she has great friends. She's making academic progress that's tied to the PA state standards, and she's statistically more likely to experience academic success, employment, college, and independent adulthood than those who do not have access to this kind of inclusion. We are incredibly proud to be here and that North Penn made this commitment and has laid the foundation for inclusion of all students. It's bold, and it's a best practice that too many districts will not do. There's no question why North Penn embraced inclusion as the best approach, and now we must be committed to improving how we do it, to more fully support the students and our amazing teachers. Every one of them deserves to be successful. Thank you for giving me the extra time, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Winterhall. It's very nice to hear that your daughter is being successfully included in classrooms, and that's really great news. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, hi, my name is Inez Appel, and I am here because I was made aware of ongoing concerns with teachers over the equity of education. I am here to tell you a little bit about my daughter and my experience as a parent with special needs. My daughter, Sophia Pell, started kindergarten at Whitnor Elementary School in 2011, when all the kids with special needs were bused to this school. After the first year and no academic progress, several parents decided that we will go through mediation and request a due process. We wanted our kids, as students with disabilities, to receive free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment, as allowed by the law, IDEA. Fortunately for our kids, we won, and the school district agreed to the changes. Sophia is now in 8th grade and has been in full inclusion program since kindergarten. She attended General Natural Elementary, her home school, and is now in Pennfield Middle School. She takes science, history, reading, and math. And this is regular education grade math by using the patent modifications. She participates in all her specials. She is doing fabulous, enjoys school, and has dreams to attend Penn State University. Sophia is also involved in extracurricular activities, including swimming, ballet, and basketball. She even made the junior varsity team. We truly feel that Sophia has thrived from being included not only in academics, but also involved in all activities. There is a lot of research that has demonstrated the success of inclusion, but I am here to tell you that my daughter is living proof of the success of inclusion. I have also seen positive effect it has on typical kids. The modification has helped other kids. Her aid also helps the kids in class, not only Sophia. And kids have learned to be more tolerable and kinder to each other. And finally, I leave you with the following from the North Penn Special Education Department, their vision. North Penn School District seeks to develop students who are confident, independent, self-advocates who contribute to society in purposeful ways. Through meaningful success to a rigorous curriculum, timely and effective interventions, parental partnerships, and support in a respectful environment, our students with disabilities will meet the high expectation we hold for all. And thanks to Sophia's teachers, the inclusion program she's in, and the support of the district, she is that student. So let's continue with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing Sophia's story. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment this evening?
Somebody got a pen I can borrow? Thanks. Good evening. My name is Talos Vitols. I'm not here to tell you a story about my son Ivar's Down syndrome in the school district. You're doing a great job with him. I'm just here with a couple of questions. I've received information via email, via conversations. I'm sure it's secondhand. I'm sure it doesn't have all of the nuances of what's actually going on, that there's individuals within the teachers union that are not happy with kids with IEP. That's the message that I got, and that there's a report or something out there that is not properly formatted. And so my question is, what steps are being taken to find out what, if any, issues there really are within the teachers union, within the individual teachers within that group? Are they resource issues? Are they training issues? What are we doing to find out what those issues are? And what are we doing to find out how to include those people that are dissatisfied in whatever mission we are, however we're going forward to solve this issue? And how can we, as parents, find out what those issues really are so that we can be part of the solution, part of getting this better? So hearing that people are really upset, but not being able to find out what it is because the report is not really distributable, it would be nice to find out what those concerns really are and see what we can do to help you and the teachers get what we need for our students so that they can be successful and included within the district.
And I'm sorry, you said your name was Mr. Vitelos?
Vitols, yes.
Vitols. This is public comment, so if you would like to stay after the meeting,
Sure.
I think we can have a discussion with Dr.
Yeah,
Dietrich,
okay.
and he can answer your questions then, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment?
If you have a request for information afterwards, is that a public comment or is that just we get that afterwards?
Any questions you can ask afterwards. We're all around. So, but this is for public comment, so not meant for debate. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else? Last chance for public comment. Okay. Sounds good. We'll move on then. Next item up then would be the superintendent's report. Dr.
Yes, we do
Deacon.
have one item this evening. I recommend the approval of J. Mia Kim, EDD, as Director of Human Resources for a term beginning on June 9th, 2020, and ending on June 30th, 2023, and the approval of the employment agreement with Dr. Kim, a copy of which is on file in the office of the Chief Financial Officer.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fusco, seconded by Mr. Casa. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And with us this evening, we have Dr. Kim. She's in the back of the room there, so we welcome her. After the meeting, we'll do some introductions to each of the board members individually, so thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Kim. All right, moving on then to new business.
So we do have the targeted support and improvement plan for Pennfield Middle School, and Dr. Bauer and his team will be leading this discussion.
Good evening, everyone. So I am pleased to be before you this evening to share some important work that has been done in support of Pennfield Middle School. Mr. Scracky, if you could go to the next slide. So targeted support, which is part of PDE's plan under the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015, classifies districts or schools specifically that are in need of academic support or facing particular challenges. The only building in the district this year, and this is the first year of these designations, that was targeted was Pennfield Middle School. And there are 3 tiers to this system that PDE wrote into their plan as mandated by ESSA. There's comprehensive support and improvement, which is the acronym CSI, and those are the schools with the most significant challenges. There's the A TSI, which is the additional targeted support and improvement. So these are schools in which one or more student groups at or below the criteria used for CSI. And then finally, targeted support and improvement. So this is the lowest. If you want to relate it back a couple years ago to No Child Left Behind, they used to say School Improvement 1, School Improvement 2, very similar in nature. So targeted support and improvement, while certainly we'll outline for you why Pennfield was designated as a TSI school, and certainly we're concerned about that. But of these 3 interventions or categorizations, it is the lowest of the 3. And the state kind of designates it as a warning system. Like, hey, if this doesn't improve, you could be in one of these other 2 categories. Next slide, Mr. Scracky. So the other things that you need to know, I think I hit on one of these here, but the criteria that drives TSI are actually more rigorous than CSI and A TSI because it is a warning system. So they're just raising flags like, hey, these could be issues in the future. And lastly, for my part, and then I'll introduce 2 of my wonderful colleagues, the other 2 categories are CSI and A TSI are based upon 3 years worth of data, whereas TSI in this case is simply last year. So it's just targeted support based upon last year's data, where the other 2 categories are last 3 years, and we did not qualify for those. Okay, so I have with me this evening principal of Pennfield Middle School, Dr. Sean O'Sullivan, and our curriculum supervisor in specific to the area in which we were identified. And that's Ms. Rachel Early. So if I can invite Dr. O'Sullivan and Ms. Early to the podium, and they're going to share some more details about why they were designated and what we're going to do about it. And ultimately, we are going to request that the board make a motion to approve this. PDE requires that the board approve it. It does not need to be submitted to PDE. They do not need to approve it. It is locally governed by the LEA. So we need to present it to you and ultimately, of course, field your questions or any adjustments that you'd like to see. And then we ask that the board take action on it this evening. Okay? Dr. O'Sullivan?
Good evening. The one area where we were targeted with TSI is economically disadvantaged. And how they identify the group is a group is identified if you have 20 or more students that fall within that category, and it's almost like a two-pronged category that you're looking at. The first is a proficiency level, and that all students have to be at a proficiency level of 48.4% or higher. When they combine the proficiency level, they look at the students' PSSA scores, their Keystone scores, as well as their PASA scores also. So Pennfield fell at the proficiency rate of 46.9%. So that was right below that level, that mark that we were identified with economically disadvantaged. Then again within that area, there was noted that there was negative growth combined with our math students as well as our ELA students. So when we were notified of this, that we had opportunities to go down to Montgomery County IU and really learn more about the process and know what we need to do to build a plan. We had to analyze our school's strengths. We had to take a look at the challenges. And what we also had to build is a comprehensive team at the building to really look at this and see what are we going to do to attack this. That team consisted of myself, my assistant principal, Dr. Carlin, my department chairs in math as well as ELA, and the curriculum supervisors of math, which is Ms. Ketty Comiskey, and English, which is Ms. Early. And Rachel's going to come on and talk to you a little bit about the identification, where our ELL students will be, and then I'm going to come back at the end and talk to you about the specific plan that we did put in place.
Okay, so we can jump over to the next slide. Okay, so English learner proficiency is measured with another indicator than language arts and math. So our English learners have to take a separate assessment in addition to the PSSA and Keystone exams. They have to take something called the Access Assessment, and that is administered in January and February. So that assessment is the only data point for English language proficiency in the TSI. That's what's being measured. It's only where students stand on this test. And this test is administered online, and it's administered in the 4 areas of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. So unfortunately, we got this information pretty late, right before the holidays. In December, I was able to go to a training in Malvern, and they're like, well, you're going to be taking access testing in about after the holidays in like 3 weeks. So unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of turnaround time, and unlike TSI, where there's a combination of the math and ELA scores, this is strictly just that access data point. You can go to the next slide. So in addition to the access data point, it's pretty complicated how they measure English language proficiency. So some students have, according to the state, only 4 years until they're supposed to exit the ELD program. Some can have up to 6, and that is measured through a different assessment called the WIDA screener, or WAPT, which is what students take once they have registered in the district and they've completed a home and language survey that signifies that they speak another language at the home. Then they're given that assessment. So depending on how they score on that, they could have more or less time to exit. And so based upon that report, the state is measuring, okay, this child has 4 years, they either obtained that goal or they didn't obtain that goal. This child has 6 years, they didn't obtain that goal, they did obtain that goal. So it's very confusing. In addition to TSI, we also got a report called the Growth to Target report that I'll talk about a little bit in our action plan, which is a powerful data tool because we got it from PDE, and they pretty much give us a list of all of our English language learners and how they've scored on WAPT, how they scored on Access year after year, and when they should exit the program. And this is something that's new to us. So we're going to use this data tool to kind of drive where we need to be, because all of this is really new in the land of English language development. So looking at our data, Pennfield did have a group of over 20 English learners. I'll be talking a little bit about our size of English learners at Pennfield. So they were below the state average, and that is why they're appearing on the TSI report. So if you look up at the screen, you can see that in a relatively short period of time, Pennfield has gone from, hovering around that 20 student group. We were there for a very long period of time, a little under 20 to 20, and then within the last couple years, we have really taken off in terms of, I had updated numbers up there that they aren't on there that I corrected. So in 16, 17, we were at 20 students, 17, 18, 33, in 18, 19, 35, and the top year should be 19, 20, not 20, 21, that's next school year, 48 students. So you can see in a 4-year period of time, we have really grown in terms of our English language learners over there. And that means that our supports there need to grow and our structures in place in order to make sure that we are exiting our students on time and providing the supports that they need to be successful on the access exam and also successful in their education. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So as Dr. O'Sullivan said, he's going to be talking about the overall plan, but just specific to English language learners. Some of the changes that need to be made at Pennfield for next year are scheduling. As you can see, the influx of students, we need to really schedule in order to meet their needs. And students need to be scheduled in English language blocks according to their English language level, meaning beginner, intermediate, and advanced, not on grade level. So this is something that needs to be made a priority. And Dr. O'Sullivan oversaw this at Penndale, where we had 2 teachers and 2 assistants and was able to, where we had similar numbers like we have at Pennfield. So just implementing a similar scheduling model to really meet the needs of our English language learners. So that with staffing, with scheduling comes the staffing piece in order to accommodate. Right now we have 1 full-time ESL teacher over there with 48 students. So that is a lot. We do have 2 assistants, but that's a huge, it's a huge responsibility for her. So we need to get some more support to make that scheduling happen so our students are receiving the support that they need. And the last plan is to use that growth to target report that's new from the state to really make those database-driven decisions. So we're looking at, where our students are, where they need to be in terms of exiting what year and what supports are put in place. And of course, we have other data points as well. We have their PSSA, we have their Lexile, we have CDT data on them as well, but it's important that we use this additional tool that was given to us.
Can I ask a quick question while you're still at the podium? I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I appreciate the data that you've included in this. It seems like the assessment is taken at a moment in time and may not factor in, you've seen such incredible growth in terms of the number of students, but are we measuring, or are you aware, obviously with 48 students and how committed you all are they new to the U.S. and entering at middle school and low language, that they're entering middle school with no prior education in English? And are we measuring at that point and then being measured by the state at that level?
That's a really good question. So the students have to take the access every year. So it's not just students who are new to Pennfield, it's all of the students who are still currently enrolled in the English language development program. So once students obtain a certain score on the access assessment, they're then eligible to exit the program and go into a phase called monitoring, where they no longer have to meet that data point. So our students who have reached that score, they're no longer, then they're exited and it counts for 1 year, and then the next year, they're no longer included in that group. So from year to year, our English learner group changes, because if you've exited, you've met the criteria, you're no longer in that group. So some who are being tested have been in the program for a couple years, others are new, so they fall within that range. But if they've scored high enough last year, then they're no longer included in the following year.
So they'll take that test once a year.
Yep.
That we're measuring their progress year to year for up to 4 to 6 years, and then we monitor. Okay.
Exactly.
So then the rate of change and that rate of growth and improvement has really been a result of just the numbers of students increasing and needing additional supports.
Correct.
So
And
staffing and a change in schedule. Okay, I get it.
And
Okay.
it's whether or not they exit the program when they are predicted to exit.
so we have students who have increased their score, but they haven't, if the state said, when you came in and you scored high in the WAP, you have less time to exit, and maybe you didn't exit in 4 years, but you exited in the 5th year. So that data is showing that, we were dinged. And we also get a report in that growth to target report. It's nice because it doesn't only show you if you made it or not, it shows you, hey, you're at 0.9, which means you're almost there. So we talked a lot with the teacher about having conversations with students about, and also finding a good time, because, right after the holidays, before midterm exams, it's another assessment that kids have to do. So we need to be flexible and work with them. And they also have to do multiple components like speaking into the computer, writing. So there's a variety of different things. It's not just PSSA, where they either write in a book or type online. So there is a whole microphone component piece as well. So it's a little bit more intricate.
I just have a quick question, point of clarification. On the English language proficiency at Pennfield slide, it has English language proficiency at Pennfield 11.5%, and then it says economically disadvantaged English learners. So the state average is 31.2%. So that we're trying to get at the average or
Yes.
above? Okay.
So actually, for as long as we're growing like in the right direction for TSI, like if we would make a big jump, then that would be positive. But yes, the state average is the goal. And out of all of our, like we have buildings that are in the district that are well above the state average, including Penndale. So that's why we really have similar numbers over there, similar scheduling models, similar staffing. So we really want to implement that model there because they really need the same supports.
Thank you.
So by comparison, Penndale also, Dr. O'Sullivan pointed out that there's kind of two prongs to this test. And Penndale, for their economically disadvantaged, they too were below the state average across the board. But when you go to the second prong of the test, the English learners, one of the subgroups that are targeted by the CSI designation, they were well above the state average. So the flag was not raised because this subgroup did exceed the state average. So, and Dr. O'Sullivan was the principal at Penndale the previous 14 years. So we're excited that he's the one now leading the ship for this program.
Okay,
I'm just curious, real quick. Negative growth, does that mean no growth, or does that mean it moved backward?
It means that it kind of moved backwards.
Moved backward.
That there was no growth and it moved backwards, yes.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful, maybe Todd, you want to do the explanation in terms of how growth is calculated? So it's relative to all the other students that, are in the same situation, so you can talk about that.
Yeah, so I tend to draw on a sports analogy where I say if you're looking at a leaderboard, and if you ranked kids across the state with a similar testing profile, so students who perform in a similar way across all their years of testing. So if they're a junior, certainly there's more data to substantiate where they are on that leaderboard as opposed to when they're a third grader. But compared to people that are in your grouping on that leaderboard, did you move up? Did you stay the same, or did you fall behind your peers? So you will often hear people say things like it is harder for your higher achieving students to grow. That's not true because they're being compared to the higher achieving students. So you're being compared to your test-alike peers across the state.
So that relative ranking is really, really important. It's not, well, they were reading at a second grade level, now they're only reading at the first grade level. That's not the case.
Yeah, a common misconception is, did you make a year's worth of growth within a year's time? And that's not true. It's compared to your peers. Did you progress at the same rate, a slower rate, or better?
So after all of this, obviously we had to create a plan. So one of the most important things we thought was creating time for the teachers. We have an identified group of students that we really need to provide intervention supports with across the board, so we needed to create time within our schedule. In the middle schools, we're very fortunate to have Penntime. Now at all three middle schools, we do have Penntime. Penntime varies at different schools at the time of the day, but it all is about 38 minutes in length. And that time is geared for intervention support. So what we decided that we were going to do is we're going to provide a common time 2 times per cycle for each of the major subject areas that are tested, for English, for science, and for mathematics. So 2 times in a 6-day cycle, each of those teachers will have off from Penntime, and their only job will be to work with students and provide intervention, support, extra help, whatever it may be. Now, when we're looking at this, obviously we had to find who our targeted kids were. We had to make certain that we were hitting the right kids. So when we went back in there, and a lot of it is digging through the data, we need to know who our students are, where they come from, and what we needed to do. So we worked with individuals at the district to identify who those students were within the bubble of our economically disadvantaged who didn't make proficiencies. Because our 7th graders last year are now our 8th graders. They're going to be tested in 8th grade. We need to make sure we're targeting them. Then additionally, we have students who are coming up in 7th grade, from 6th grade, from all different middle or elementary schools. So we need to make certain we were targeting the correct kids. So we ran a variety of reports, and one of the reports that we utilized a lot is the PVOS report. So within state, we've got our PVOS reports, and they do have a student projections category. And that we found by looking at that, they have students in categories of 70% or above, have a 70% chance or above of being proficient on the PSSA exam. There's a 40 to 70% group, and there's a below 40% group. And our target really is that 40 to 70% group. So we created sheets for the teachers to look at. We identify who the students are, identify the teachers, identify their performance on the PSSA to get a good snapshot and really digging into this data. Then compare that with our individual students who didn't make it in 8th grade to get the exact students that we need to look at. Now, understanding there are other students that need intervention supports also, we are able to provide that with them too. Our whole focus is not just on economically disadvantaged students. That's who we're targeting, but any student that falls within that bubble of 40 to 70%, we're bringing in for intervention support during our Penntime. So teachers have had this in their schedules since probably November or beyond, and we've been working with that. We've met individually with the teachers too, that they have an opportunity to collaborate amongst their PLCs to make sure we are targeting the right group of students. The idea is, again, it's very specific, it's very focused on that group of students. So again, we found that time is the most important thing, and we've seen good results from that. We've seen teachers who are very excited about having that time because in a busy scheduled day, just to sit down and talk about what we can do more for kids is very important. The next goal also, Steve, is we had to look at the data. I think data tells a story. I think it's the most important story that we need to tell about students and what we're going to do to meet the needs of all of our diverse learners. And if we need to adjust instruction or make any modifications, we're able to do that. So what we used is we were using the CDT data as well as the PVOS data to provide instructions. And from this, what I created I used kind of an example from the elementary schools where they have data days in the elementary schools. We created data days for our math teachers in the middle school, where our math teachers for 7th and 8th grade math have had a data day in December, in January, and they just most recently had one in March, again, to look at all of our students, to make sure we're providing those specific supports for all students across the board and make any modifications to our instruction that we need to. We started with in math as kind of like a guinea pig, as something that, I heard an idea from the elementary school. I thought it was a great idea. Let's see if we can do it, and we've seen good success for that, kind of looking at bringing more of that, to next year to other departments, but we did start with that within math. Obviously, there are targets along the way, as you can see from each marking period, from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarter. We are kind of like in the middle because we did get the data so late. So a lot of the stuff we are is probably in the middle of that 2nd and 3rd, quarter data, looking at what we can do to continue to support all students. So with that, I think we've covered everything. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you comment on what happens to the students that fall out of the 40 to 70% PVAAS?
PVAS. We're still, so if a student is 70% or higher, I guess the data has stated that those students have a greater chance of being proficient or advanced on the PSSA.
What about the ones less than 40?
We're monitoring them. So we're really looking at some of those students, and some of those students are already receiving interventions throughout the course of the day also. So when we're looking at that, if they're receiving interventions throughout the course of the day, adding extra interventions on top of interventions they're already receiving through different teachers, we didn't want to add more. But we're still looking at them and making sure that they are getting the supports they need.
Right, many of the students who fall below that targeted range are already receiving supports in their schedule.
Okay.
So these are kids who are actually getting pulled out that are not getting the supports.
Okay. Yeah. And then just curious, because thank you, because now I understand this a bit more.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's done during the summer to help these types of
outside of
that I'm
students
aware
who
of.
have ESY.
Correct.
Yeah, we have some students that have opportunities in the summer, but the majority of our students do not, unless they sign up at the high school, which is not Pennfield. There are like boot camps that they can sign up for the Keystone exams and opportunities for SAT programming, but not at the middle school level right now. Yeah.
Outside of the classroom, do you try to involve these kids in extracurricular activities in any
Yes.
way?
Yeah, I mean, we encourage all students to be involved in something at school because they really want to experience the middle school environment. So we have, I think at Pennfield, we have over 40 clubs and activities, and we really encourage kids to be involved in anything, whether it's being part of the school play, being part of the sound crew, being part of the stage crew, managers of our sports or athletic teams, anything kids can get involved in, we want them involved. And that's a message we continually tell all students.
And do you help them get to school if have single parents and they can't make it to school for after-school activities?
So we will work with families. Many of our advisors and our coaches will know if a student who wants to be in something has difficulty getting to and from school. We'll reach out within the team community to see if anybody is able to carpool or what we can do to get students there. So if we see students who want to be involved and for reasons that they can't be involved, they explain that to them. We will work with them and their parents to try and get them to the activity.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I know we don't have intervention groups defined yet, especially at student size. Is there a number in your head when they get pulled out for that intervention time, the maximum number of students that will be with the teacher during that time? I know it's a really kind of future question.
I would say, I tell the teachers 5 to 7,
Okay.
7 at the most, just because you want to give each child the time that they deserve. I think if you get, I think 7 is at the peak in my opinion, because it's very difficult when in the short window to really focus on that particular child and what they need. What teachers have also done is they begin to group kids based upon their area of weakness on the PSSA. So if a lot of kids are having key ideas as a weakness, they'll bring all of those students in, so kids are working together instead of you working with 5 different needs in those areas. But 5 to 7 is the max. Some teachers have gone above that because they feel comfortable with that. Some teachers have gone below that because they want to be certain that they have more time with each student.
Sure. And in the selection of teachers to take on those tasks, is this something teachers volunteer for, or is this becoming part of their schedule?
It's becoming part of their schedule because the teachers have Penntime, and that Penntime, and usually they have a group of kids in there. So what we've done is we freed them up so those students will work with another teacher, so they have this time without worrying about any other students coming in, anything else going on. Their time is to work with those students.
So Dr. O'Sullivan is not, he is being modest in that he's been quite innovative in rearranging schedules to give teachers that time. So when he came to me with this idea, hey, elementary schools do these data days, they get together, they plan interventions, we work through the Harvard recommended data-wise process. He said, can I do it? And I said, can you figure out a way that doesn't cost anything? And he did. He did. And then he presented it to the other middle schools, and the other principals are trying to find their versions of this as well. So I really appreciate, and he was doing this, some of this, prior to this designation. As Ms. Early said, we didn't get this designation, I don't believe, till the end of November, and the testing is coming up soon, and in many cases has already happened. So this is a new thing, and it just got rolled out, and we didn't have much time.
Dr. Bauer, is this is the only school and only subgroup that has to do a presentation?
That's
like
correct.
this? That's it.
Of the 18 buildings, this
That's
is the one. Yep.
Pretty good.
Thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Dr. O'Sullivan. Thank you, Ms. Early.
So I, at this point, would recommend that someone on the board make a motion to approve the TSI plan for Pennfield.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Fusco and seconded by Mrs. Ramich. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And moving on then, the next item up would be the second audience of citizens. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make another public comment? Okay.
My name's John Maggi, and I have a daughter, Isabel, who's been in the district for some time. She's currently in 8th grade at Pembroke. And as I went through, I was listening to what you're all talking about here with the language and the needs of these students. And what struck me most was the amount of effort and the goodwill that really went into what you were trying to help these kids with. And what struck me also was with special needs, I'm hoping that the same amount of effort and the same amount of attention would be given to those students too, because they really need what you guys can do for them. And I get a little emotional when I talk about it, because it means a lot. And, sorry.
Okay.
But when you look at these kids and what they've been through and the chance you have to help them, it's tremendous. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maggi.
My apologies.
No, not at all.
It hits me,
No.
you know.
Yes. It's understandable. Thank you for making your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, I would like to make a quick comment, and I would like to thank the administration, particularly Dr. Dietrich for all your work with the coronavirus. I know it's been occupying your days for days now. And I would like to commend also the communications department for all the updates that we've been putting up on the website. So if there's anybody that needs any information on how the district is currently handling the potential coronavirus in our district, please refer to the website for daily updates. I think they've been doing a great job. And I would also like to shout out to the custodial staff for working extra to keep our schools and our buses clean. It's been a lot of extra work, and they're doing a great job. So thank you to everybody for doing that. And I think we all have our part in helping keep the coronavirus at a minimum here. If parents can reiterate with their students to please, practice proper hygiene, wash your hands, etc., we would be very appreciative of that.
I also want to give a shout out. You included everyone, and I think everyone should be commended. And I think we still have more to go, and we still have a lot to do to try to really understand what is happening. But I also want to thank teachers in their way of being incredibly creative in being able to take this, something that at home is quite emotional and we're all very concerned, and being able to translate it into something that's digestible and understandable for children. So bringing the science into this and what this is about, bringing in the different careers and ideas about who's involved and what their roles are, it's taken a crisis-like situation and has helped at least a student in my home see the future, a potential career, a potential job, a potential role. And I want to thank everyone for the time that they've put into that.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? No? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.